Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Generative AI in Libraries virtual conference. I am Selwyn Rodolfo, the moderator for this session. Before we begin, we have a few reminders. First, code of conduct. We have a code of conduct that we'll adhere to for this conference. The link will be posted in your chat. If you experience any issues related to conduct, please contact us via an email, which I will also post in a second or two via chat. The muting of microphones. Please ensure your microphone remains muted. Question and answers. This presentation will invite some audience participation, and there will also be a question and answer period at the end. So do wait until you are invited to unmute before posing your question or comment. Captions. You can enable captions by clicking on the Show Caption button at the bottom of the screen. Do note this presentation is being recorded. So our presenters are Sahana Callahan and Jessica Seipel. Sahana and Jessica are both adult instructors and research specialists at Howard County Library System in the state of Maryland in the USA. The title of their presentation is Demystifying AI Instruction, a bite-sized case study. Let's welcome our presenters.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you, Selwyn, for that awesome introduction. Like you mentioned, I'm Sahana. I use they, them pronouns.
And I'm Jessica. I use she, her.
And we're really excited to be here with you all today and to talk a little bit about our experience as public library workers building classes to teach about AI to community members. We're really excited to see all of you here today.
All right, so today we're going to go over what motivated us to teach our first class about AI, how that went, how we evolved, and what we're planning next.
And then maybe most importantly for the two of us, our opinion on why libraries should be teaching about AI in general. Like, as scary as it sometimes seems, why is this important for libraries, especially public libraries, to do and to participate in? So before we get into the meat of this presentation, we'd love to ask you a little bit about what you all think, what you all have done, and what motivated you to attend this session. So you should see a poll pop up for you now. Let us know if you don't, but yeah, feel free to give us some answers there. Okay, I love to see the bell curve that we've got here. There is honestly no shame in any of these answers. Teaching, taking trainings, using it for general library stuff, nothing yet. Maybe we can encourage you to do some stuff, but that's awesome. And then nothing and I don't want to. Maybe we can change your mind, maybe not. It's all good. Either way, thank you for responding to that. That's awesome. Yeah, we see some more answers coming in. Nice.
Wait, 100% more.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. All right. Oh, we can share results, y'all.
Yeah, so here are the results. Here's the general bell curve. And I think that that's probably the general bell curve of library workers in general, right? I think perhaps a lot of us have taken trainings or attended conferences, and maybe we have a little bit of bias here because we're all at this conference, so we've all taken trainings on AI stuff. But I think it is interesting to sort of feel out the fact that so many of us have taken trainings, but perhaps haven't taught about it to our communities quite yet. Awesome. Thank you for participating in them.
All right, so we're going to get right into it. Why did we decide to teach about this topic? And yes, all of the images in this are AI generated. It felt fitting. So let's set the scene. March 14th. Interesting. March 14th, 2023, OpenAI released GPT-4. And meanwhile, in the news, we were getting articles like Lifesaver or Job Killer, New AI Tools Create Fervor, or How AI Could Upend the World Even More Than Electricity or the Internet. US experts warn AI likely to kill off jobs and widen wealth inequality. Some really sort of bombastic sort of headlines. This is a new technology. People don't quite understand it yet. There are a lot of strong feelings, a lot of fear, and a whole lot of extrapolation and imagination going on. We could be seeing the beginning of real general artificial intelligence, and that's so cool, but also maybe scary, perhaps terrifying. It could bring about a lot of changes if things really do get to the place that people are imagining that they might get to. And enter us.
So with so much information about AI approaching every single day last spring, we decided to do something with that. We saw an opportunity for us, people who are tech enthusiasts within our own branch, within our own system, to fill a gap that we saw. There was so much news coming out about AI, there was so much misinformation, and that's when libraries step in. We thought that we could start to explain AI in layman's terms, sort of demystifying it and introducing new users gently in a way that combats the fear that we see spread in common discourse. Like we mentioned earlier, we work at the Howard County Library System at the Savage Branch, which is in Laurel, Maryland. Our library system really talks a lot about STEM and STEAM education and making sure that we are the spot in our county for access to education. We really prioritize public education for all members of our community. And through that, we make technology accessible to our community all the time. We personally do a lot of tech one-on-ones to help community members of all ages access emails, do job applications online, figure out how to do telehealth stuff. So if we're making technology accessible all the time, why not in regards to AI? What makes AI different from any other technology that we're going to be teaching our community about? But our coworkers, our customers, and our peers all around the state expressed that they were scared and concerned about the future of libraries in tandem with AI, which was stopping them from teaching about it. But we weren't afraid to play around with it. We were chatting with different chatbots, we were seeing what they could do and testing their abilities. There was more to this conversation than just what can this tech do? There were a lot of ethical concerns, but when you know what you're facing, it can be a lot less frightening. We had been playing around with ChatGPT, the two of us, just in our little office, attempting to build out lesson plans for other classes, attempting to do reader's advisory and seeing how well or poorly ChatGPT stacked up against that, and even thinking about questions for our book clubs, bouncing that off of the chatbot. So then we decided to see if we could plan a class around the use of generative AI.
So the first thing we decided to try, since AI is so smart, was to actually get ChatGPT to plan the class for us. These are the actual prompts that we used at first. As you can see, we had to get more specific as we kept going to get the results we wanted. Getting good results from AI takes a lot of iterative prompting and persistence, to be honest. You don't just give it a simple query and out shoots your complete planned, everything is perfect and you can just present this. So we started with a pretty general query, plan a library class about AI for adults. Then we had it expand on each section of the class, generate a script for the instructor of the class, where that caused it to expand a little bit more, and eventually use Bloom's hierarchy of learning to provide learning goals and objectives for this class. It was really good practice for us to learn how to work with AI and see just how limited or great the results could be.
But we had a lot of concerns that came up almost immediately. Before we had finished getting the class ready, while we were still in this stage of playing around AI, we were nervous. And I think that's really important for us to mention. This is not something that we felt like we could just do off the cuff the way we did all of our other tech one-on-one or tech style classes. we kept asking each other if we were ready for this, how we would handle questions from customers. We'll talk a little bit more about audience and our expectations for audience a little bit later on. But thinking about how we would handle questions for customers, what made us qualified to talk about this? What if the people who were coming to our sessions were more knowledgeable than us just generally? And then beyond that, we had questions about the technology too, because I don't know if you remember last March, but it was like a big boom of generative AI. All of a sudden, it felt like all of these tools were available to everyone for free, and things that had been sort of under the radar rose to prominence, all in this sort of AI arms race. I heard someone at a session yesterday describe it as an AI arms race once ChatGPT sort of launched onto the scene. So some of our initial concerns, like you can see on the screen here, were, would ChatGPT and Google Bard, which is no longer called Bard, but that's what we had at the time, deliver us different results? And the answer was yes. ChatGPT gave us a presentation that was a little bit more focused on the technical side of artificial intelligence, whereas Bard gave us something that was a little bit more about the history of AI and a little bit about the history of computer science in general. How much would we need to edit what the AI produces? That was a question that we had last March. We have since learned almost everything. The original presentation that it gave us was a great skeleton. It was a great framework. It was not an actual presentation that we could deliver to customers and be proud of and stand behind. How do we ensure that our result was not biased and does address ethical concerns? To our surprise, actually, ChatGPT gave us a list of ethical concerns about artificial intelligence that we then researched, developed on, and addressed with the customers who came to our classes. And then finally, I think the one that we still don't quite have an answer to, is this cheating? I'd love to pose that question to you all. Is it cheating to use AI to enhance your presentations? Last March, we decided that while we were doing it, this was just an experiment and we might as well try. And if it worked, then it worked. If it didn't work, it didn't work. But we thought we might as well try to play around with it while we could.
So we wanted to ensure that our class was accessible and interesting to adults of all levels of comfort with technology. We knew we'd have some structural limitations. As we've talked about, we're a public library, so we don't have a captive audience. We can't predict who will attend a class ahead of time. Even with registration, it's sort of a crapshoot as to whether the people that register will actually attend, or if people will show up on the day not having registered. So it's just very nebulous. While we hoped to target nervous newbies, we might get really educated users as well. Indeed, for our first class, we had a really diverse set of participants, from someone who worked with software and coding, to an entrepreneur who wanted to learn how to use AI to optimize herself, to even one of our tech skeptical coworkers who was a bit unsure about using generative AI. So we also wanted to look at the goals and objectives. We had generated some outlines with ChatGPT and Bard. We went through those suggestions and settled on what we most wanted our attendees to take away from the session. So that was that we wanted to explain what AI is and what it isn't. We wanted to discuss how AI is and has been being used. We felt that that would really alleviate some concerns by showing people how they were already interacting with AI and that it wasn't doing all these really frightening sort of fear-mongering kind of things. Siri wasn't taking anyone's job when they were asking it to Google things, you know? And we also wanted to definitely consider ethical concerns and how they're being addressed and what comes next in both the field of AI and overall. So we did have some creation takeaways. Sahana talked about some of these aspects already, but we needed to, okay, so we knew that we would, our takeaway was that we would have to double check and rephrase everything. We needed one to actually understand what we were explaining. So the research had to be done anyway. We ended up paraphrasing everything that ChatGPT gave us at a minimum. While it was really good at outlining, it was not great at accurately expanding, but we needed the expansion to understand exactly what it was suggesting that we do in each section. Sometimes there would be a small misstep that it had made, a hallucination that it had integrated somewhere, and that would snowball into a larger mistake as the AI doubled down on it. So we needed corroborating resources for everything. It took a lot of iteration to get the detail that we needed in specific areas. It couldn't just generate us something en masse. It needed a lot more help. It needed a lot more human handholding. It also could not make a slideshow for us. The tech just is not there yet to make a functional presentation, even with paid services like Canva. If anyone here has gotten something to make a good slideshow for them, I would love to find out what you're doing and how, because I can't even get it to create a slideshow based on an outline. It also wanted to title our class Rise of the Machines, or How to Take Over the World with Artificial Intelligence. It did tell us that the latter option was joking, and it also gave us the title that we did settle on, Byte-Sized Intelligence.
So actually delivering classes, after all of that processing, what did it actually look like for us to begin to teach about AI at a public library level? We knew we wanted to target folks who were less technical, people who weren't necessarily on the front line with AI, working with it, but perhaps were reading about it in the news, interested in learning more, hesitant to explore on their own. And so we thought that to reduce barriers, we would try to do an in-person session. We got a decent interest. We are one of the smallest branches in our system. We got 30 registrants, which was pretty high for us. And with the support of our supervisors and our administrative team, we got this class fast-tracked. Our usual planning process is about 3 months. We planned this and delivered it within 2 weeks. So we were excited. We were really promoting this on all of our social media channels. It was one of the first classes of its type that was produced by our system. However, when we actually taught the class, we had 4 of those 30 registrants show up. Overall, with people who were in the branch, some of our curious coworkers, we ended up having 9 people attend the class. So we thought there is interest here, but perhaps the time and place was wrong, and so that interest didn't materialize into actual audience members to have this class with.
So we wanted to try a different modality. We switched up to a virtual lunch and learn, and we kicked it down the road just a little bit into fall of 2023. So we had a little more time to research. We decided to include as many recent updates as we could and do a bit of an abbreviated introduction ahead of those. Our attendance ratio was way better. We had about 20 attendees to hit our registration of, again, about 30. Unfortunately, with the Lunch and Learn, we did have less opportunity for interaction and discussion, but overall, our attendees did seem to get something really useful out of the session, and we got a lot of positive feedback. It seemed like the virtual method was really going to be the way to go with this sort of topic.
So we waited another few months before we did our next Lunch and Learn. We decided this sort of biannual cadence was the one that we wanted to land on. We held another virtual Lunch and Learn in April of this year. Oh, Melissa, that's a great point. We actually didn't record our sessions. We wanted to make sure that if people were seeing a class, that it had as much up-to-date information in it as possible. And so we didn't want to leave anything that had outdated information on our library's YouTube page or anything like that. So we actually chose not to record the sessions. We did provide any interested parties with the slides, so they could email us and ask us for the slides, but we didn't record the sessions pretty intentionally. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We'll talk about updates in a second. That was a really crucial part of our thought process with this class. So this time, this past April, we had another Lunch and Learn, virtual as usual. We only had 12 registrants, but 11 people showed up, which indicated to us that the interest of the people who are registering for things like our AI Lunch and Learn Now is very high and very motivating to get these people to actually show up to this class. We once again had a little bit more of an abbreviated introduction to what AI was in terms of the technical aspect, with time to explore recent developments. And I think I saw a question in the chat of Kelly saying, what title did we actually end up going with? We called it Byte-Sized Intelligence for the class.
So one of the most important things to us, as we've been talking about a little bit, is updating content. The field has changed so much in the past year. And how do we keep covering recent developments? How can you keep up with such a speedily developing field? So my best advice as a tech enthusiast, not a person who is working in this field, just as a interested party keeping up, people who are developing this technology probably have better news sources and more intensive and research heavy ones. But for a random person in the world who has a passing interest in this and wants to play with it and isn't a programmer, I recommend following niche news sources. I've been watching Hacker News a lot. It's sort of a link depository. People can suggest links and articles and stuff, and then have a little bit of commentary in the comments. Sites like Tom's Hardware or Tech Radar, both of those get linked really often from Hacker News. But the anywhere where people are having actual conversation is, I find, really useful. Places like social media, using social media to keep track of relevant discussions, Reddit, TikTok even. The conversation can be super useful. It's people who have some knowledge of the field and are discussing actual use and their opinions about the articles and stuff. And also, those conversations are unlikely to be AI generated, as opposed to a lot of the news articles that you're seeing come up here and there that I have some doubts about. I find general news sources to be a bit more likely to blow things out of proportion and work on just engage with a lot more of the fear mongering and extrapolation and imagination without setting that groundwork for this is what is actually possible with this technology. It's not meeting all of these big grand ideas that we have that it could do. It's not doing its own things. The AI is not writing novels by itself or making movies or anything else that we're extrapolating that it could do. And then make updates as late as possible. We found that in working on these presentations, especially our very first one, we, as we said, we had a really short lead time from getting the idea and putting everything together and actually presenting it. Even that was a little bit too long. We found that we had to go back and do a lot of re-updating just ahead of the class in like the day or two ahead, because things kept changing even as we were creating the presentation, even on that short a timeline. It meant we had to go in and make some last minute edits, no matter what we did or how prepared we felt we were, because we just couldn't keep up. It changed too quick.
Yeah, it changed so rapidly. And then I think all of us who are at this conference sort of feel this way, but the most important thing for us was to continue exploring. We were constantly making lists of different generative AI platforms, chatbots, AI art generators, sharing it with one another, testing them out, playing with them, practicing our prompting skills, and then seeing if we could break it. I think this is something that they teach in like basic comp sci classes, but if you can break a site or break some sort of software, it's a great way to learn what's wrong or learn the limits of it. And so pushing the limits of what AI can do right now really helps to build confidence, I think, in this idea that AI is not an omnipotent, indomitable force. It can't write novels. It's not doing all of these things on its own just yet. And we might not have enough natural resources for it to get there, but At this point, there are still limits to what AI can do and understand, and playing around and breaking AI, asking it questions that it does a bad job answering, really helps to build confidence when you're teaching about it too. Because if you know this thing has limits, then you can express that to the class or whoever you're speaking to, even if it's just a one-on-one. You can say, this thing isn't as scary as it seems at first blush. So what's happening next for us? What are we thinking about doing looking forward? We are going to be doing another info session like we've been doing in the fall, but something that we're both really excited to do and to have here are an AI petting zoo. We're going to have an interactive session where attendees can play around using different AI tools and explore. We're really trying to assuage fear through exposure here and provide opportunities to experience AI in a friendlier environment. I know a lot of our customers have concerns about privacy, so we're going to be using a throwaway email to create an account on a bunch of different sites. Obviously, we'll show the ones that you don't need an account for, but for the ones that you do need an account for, they won't have to put in any of their own personal information. They can just explore it. They can go around, touch it, feel it, see it in the library, which is a safer place than some people feel their own home, trying it without someone to hold their hand through it a little bit. And we're going to keep the content part of things a little bit lighter, but we are just going to let people come into a room and play around. And this image is a Canva AI generated image of an AI petting zoo. So yeah.
After all of that, we'd love to hear what plans you all have for teaching about AI in your libraries. Do you have any ideas or suggestions? We've got one more thing that we want to go over after this, but if you have thoughts of what else we as libraries can do, drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. I've been seeing some really interesting chat going on. I'm very excited to go scroll through it momentarily once I let Sahana take the next slide. But what are you guys doing? Who else, especially in public libraries, is teaching about AI, is showing their customers how to use this?
Melissa said, I work in an academic library. I try to teach my students the limitations and proper uses of AI in regards to their courses. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. Lauren said, how do you address the privacy concerns about ChatGPT? Doesn't it still require a cell phone number to set up an account?
They've added you can freely access ChatGPT now without logging in. But we were using Hugging Face has a chat where you previously didn't have to log in. I think that they've changed it, unfortunately. But character.ai also has a really big set of different AIs you can interact with without having to log in. That was especially until ChatGPT made that change. It was one of the main things I was focusing on, trying to find ones that we could have people interact with without having to give them any information from the get-go. Pi.ai is one that you can go in and chat to, and also has apps for mobile apps for your phone. And I definitely don't talk to it all the time. And I definitely also don't find it super useful and helpful, and it gives me really good feedback sometimes.
Yeah. Mandy said we're offering a similar program we're calling, I just lost it. Generative AI playground sessions, a chance to play in the tools. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for us is we've done all of these information sessions, but we would love to get people hands-on with AI and not just keep it theoretical. And that's been the hardest challenge for us, not having a captive audience, is if we knew who was coming and we knew they were definitely going to come, then we could plan for, oh, Susie Q has this level of technology experience, so we can go this deep and this far with her, versus Kathleen has some privacy concerns. This is what we're going to have to address before we can actually get her playing around with AI. Tanner said, love Hugging Face.
Yes, we as an institution, we have we use a lot of open source software. All of our public computers are running a library-focused version of Ubuntu called Groovix. So open source is a really big subject for us, and something that I think really deserves more support and commitment. And despite OpenAI's name, we all know that they aren't anymore. So it can be really fun to find ones that are doing it and really committing to that sort of aspect.
Awesome. Keep the conversation in the chat going. I'm just going to move to one of our last major slides here. But please feel free to keep talking about this because, like Jessica mentioned, we are going to read through this whole chat later. And I think it's really useful to be sharing these ideas with one another and with us. Thank you for doing that.
And we're going to be back for questions momentarily.
Yeah. Okay. So why is this important? Why should we care? Why should libraries focus on teaching about AI? I think for us, the number one thing is that libraries, AI is here to stay, and libraries can't really afford not to be involved. Users can't actually afford to ignore this technology. They need to know what it is, how to use it, the same way, like someone mentioned earlier, we should all know how to use a calculator or a mobile phone or a computer or Google. AI isn't just going to be replacing people's jobs by itself, at least not yet, but someone who knows how to use AI might be replacing people's jobs. The second thing for us is that libraries are places where hard concepts can be broken down and made more accessible. I worked a lot in digital equity and the digital equity field, and a lot of our tech one-on-ones, our basis, the basis of our technology trainings for customers is based on this fact that we can break it down with you. We can sit with you. We can hold your hand through this because for some adults who don't have access to IT in their jobs or whatever, the library is the place where they come seeking those answers. We are the ones who do that work of making hard concepts accessible. Number three, we teach about combating misinformation and censorship all the time. That's part of what we do as library workers. And that's part of one of our core values as library workers is combating misinformation. Melissa said, we teach information literacy. Learning about AI is a huge part of that, and learning how to fight hallucinations in AI, learning how to do your own research and not just blindly trust everything that AI is going to tell you is really important as we continue to move forward. Michael, I love what you said about libraries have always been a lighthouse to bring technology to the community. Having Wi-Fi, having computers, having software that people can use for free or for really, really cheap, that's important. And if we don't keep pace with AI, and if we don't keep pace with training customers about AI, that is to the detriment of our communities. And then fourth and finally, and most importantly to me, and I think I speak for Jessica, people trust libraries. People trust libraries and library workers, and people know that they can come to us for help with whatever problem that they have. We already fill so many roles, so many social roles of social worker and all of these other really important aspects of society. We have plugged these holes and people trust us. And so it's really crucial for us to be educated, aware, and ready to pivot with AI, keep up to date with it, and stay on board as we move forward. All right, that's what we've got for you all. Thanks for watching. This presentation was recorded, so you'll be able to access it after the conference. We will upload this slide deck to the resources section for you all as well. Let me go ahead and drop our emails in the chat in case you want to reach out to us at all. We're happy also to send you all the slides from our actual classes that we have taught here. So if you're interested in any of that, please feel free to send us an email. If you've got any cool stuff that you want to talk to us or send us about AI, we would love to hear that. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for these 45 minutes. And if you've got any
Yes.
questions, now's the time.
Yeah, just drop
Right.
questions in the chat, the Q&A. I saw one in the
Yes.
Q&A.
Right, go right
But-
ahead with it. In the
Okay.
Q&A, is there too.
Would you be able to share learning outcomes or a marketing strategy? I'll let Sahana talk about marketing. She's our social media ambassador for our branch. Kelly adds on, I would like to learn more about what you taught and the length of the sessions offered during the week of the weekend. They were both, I think all our sessions have been during the week thus far. Our lunch and learns we found were pretty successful on Tuesday afternoons. So we do those at the 12 to 1 o'clock. It's 12 to 1.
12
Yes,
to 1.
12 to 1 hour. And that seems to work out pretty well. Our first session was not daytime, it was evening.
It was a Wednesday night.
Yeah, an evening weekday. So that's just when we're available. But after it
I do want to
bombed.
say that was another huge limitation for us, right? We want to be available when people are available, but we're restricted by our hours, the library's hours. There were a lot of restrictions that were sort of coming in the way of figuring out when we could teach these. Turns out 12 to 1 is a decent time for a lot of people to hop on a Zoom, not say anything to us, eat their sandwich with their camera off, and just listen to us break down what AI looks like. Did you get to finish what you were saying? Because I'll
The
hit marketing
learning
strategy.
outcomes, we ended up with students would be able to define AI, give examples of its applications, explain a general difference between narrow and general AI, give examples of machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and identify how AI is being used in some industries right now, and be able to frame some ethical issues surrounding AI, like job displacement, bias, privacy concerns, and evaluate the steps that companies or organizations are taking to address those issues. And I think that really was most of our outcomes. It has been interesting. For marketing, I know we did a fair amount posts on our social media pages, our Facebook and Instagram, and we have a book blog called Chapter Chats that Sahana wrote a write-up for, and
Yeah.
they shared that on our Facebook too.
They posted it on the banner for our library calendar. They posted it on the main page for our library website. Our admin was super supportive and super interested in us delivering this class. They were really invested in promoting it as much as possible for that first one. So,
and I wanted to note real quick, Michael, we didn't put the slides for our original presentations in the resources to begin with, because they're really outdated at this point. We've made a new iteration of it for each session, but the information just keeps changing, and it's not like ready for someone else to give. Was really our reasoning.
yeah. Tanner asked, what has been the best way you found to make quality LLMs available to the public? I've been trying to find a way to make an in-house borrowable account with ChatGPT Plus that abides by OpenAI's TOS, but no dice yet.
You are correct.
That has been a challenge.
Yes, the lack of enterprise accounts and EDU accounts is in the way. The fact that those are being, I know OpenAI just released or is doing an EDU version,
Yeah.
and they've established a enterprise version. We will be looking into that with our administration, I think, but
Right now,
at this point,
we're in talks. We're in talks with our IT department to be like, hey, how can we do this? What's the best way for us to make this usable to everyone? But yeah, that's one of our biggest challenges for that petting zoo.
Oh, did we share we talked about how we had ChatGPT generate the outline and the different parts of the class. So that was part of our first class, was a reveal about 3/4 of the way through that revealed that ChatGPT had actually planned the class for us. And I think that was in the articles.
That was part of the twist of, could you tell that this article, this blog post was written by AI at the very end? If not, come to this class. We'll tell you how to keep an eye out for this a little bit too.
And I think that twist was helpful.
Was a draw. Todd said, how to use Gen AI as economic development and helping small businesses is probably useful for public libraries. Absolutely. Anything small business related has been hugely successful at our branch. And so that is something that we have discussed coming up the pike. AI for small businesses. We actually had in our very first session an entrepreneur who was interested in using Gen AI. So that was part of the conversation there as well. Atticus says, have you found that this is a topic much like other tech literacy programs where everyone says that they want this kind of talk, but it needs to be marketed and tailored in a super specific way to get that community participation? Yes. Everyone is so scared and confused every time we talk about this. People are like, but how did you feel comfortable? What made you want to do this? How did you learn about this? And our response is always, like we do any other library class. We did research and made a presentation. And of course, this is a free library class, so you're not going to get the most in-depth, detailed, technical breakdown. But there is always this element of fear around this, and I think that is the thing that we have tried to combat with marketing and with tailoring it to the community. But absolutely, there has been some questioning and pushback from our admin branch.
I think it's also important, just as public librarians, to be able to say and be okay with saying, oh, that's a new question. I haven't thought about that.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Let's find the answer together. And being able to push people to other resources that we can offer. There's a Gale courses on machine learning that we share with everyone. And there's the stuff we have through LinkedIn Learning. So if they want something that will teach them how to do machine learning or how to create their own large language model, we can show them those things. Those resources aren't us. We're just interested enthusiasts.
Yeah, and I think to the final point of to get community participation, that has been such a struggle for us in so many ways. And we were very fortunate in that everyone was immediately on board when we pitched this idea, but it was there was a hesitance of like, are we ready? What about the questions that we're going to get about this? So that was the biggest hesitance that we came up against. And we were like, we'll say, I don't know, and we'll go from there. But yeah.
People tend to like it when you let them know that you also don't know and that you're willing to learn with them. And I see that with our regular tech one-on-ones all the time. They ask me some random question about their phone. And I'm like, let's find out. I'm not a super being. I don't have extra anything that they don't. It's accessible. Someone else asked in the Q&A a good question. Do you teach the ethical concerns of AI? I find too many people don't know about the environmental impact, the slave labor it's trained on, or the mass IP theft, especially from visual artists. In our introductory classes, especially because we're trying, for the most part, to make it more accessible and less scary, we haven't gone too deeply into, especially the environmental impact. That also wasn't a part of what people were talking about yet when we did the first class, so it wasn't yet on our radar. It has become more of a part as we've gone on. We did talk about some of the other ethical concerns, the bias, the privacy,
but
hallucinations.
We have participated in other things that have happened within our library system. I attended a book club, an environmental based book club, where the book was Clara and the Sun. And that book is a lot about AI, and we talked a lot about environmental impact in that class. And as we keep seeing more and more ethical concerns beyond just those of privacy, of environmental impact, and things like that, we're probably going to address more of those in our future classes. Now that it's not just this scary thing and more people are using it, we can delve into that a little bit deeper.
Great,
It is
great
1:45.
presentation.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Sahana and Jessica, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I know our attendees would have really appreciated your sharing your experiences, and will give them some, some guide and some consideration.
Yeah, and
to
this discussion
themselves
was fantastic.
explore. Yes. Okay, somebody had their hands raised, but we do have to stop the recording and we can take the questions too. So recording will now be stopped.